Hello, this is Rusty Gaylord, and welcome to Fork in the Road. I'm very happy to be with you here today and happy that you're joining us. Fork in the Road is a conversation with successful people who have navigated an interesting path to get to where they are today. So I'm super happy to have Enrique Rubio with us today. Enrique started his life in Venezuela as an electronics engineer and ended up running a massive global HR conference, Hacking HR. So we're here to talk to him today as one of the major thought leaders in the HR world, which is really in the industry today. So happy to have Enrique with us today. So let me bring him on the screen here. Enrique, welcome.
Hey, Rusty, thank you so much for inviting me. I am excited about this
Absolutely.
interesting conversation that we're going to have.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So if anyone's out there, if you've got comments, if you've got reactions to our conversation, please feel free to put them in the chat and we're happy to have you join the conversation. But Enrique, let me just jump into a time in your life that seemed to be one of those forks in the road. I know you started your career as an electronics engineer working in the telecom industry. And somewhere along the line, you decided that wasn't exactly for you. You moved a little bit away from that into more of a consulting kind of role. Yeah. But then you took this change in direction, leaving Venezuela, coming to the US by way of a Fulbright scholarship. And I'm so interested in how do you make a change like that? How do you even discover that kind of opportunity, see that you might be interested in it, and then actually do it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, once again, thank you so much for inviting me to, spend some time with you and your audience. I did work in as an electronic engineer in the telecommunications sector for a while, and within that career, I worked in very sort of hard technology kind of thing. Then I moved to tech sales, and I found about myself that I truly enjoyed working with people even more than I enjoyed just working with the technology. But I didn't want to be in sales, and I started doing some, research, and I discovered or found out more about HR. And then I started getting into the world of HR by becoming a consultant and doing consulting work. And by then, this was back in 2010, I got the opportunity to come to the US with a program that is called the International Visitor Leadership Program, which is a crown jewel of the State Department, a diplomacy program. When I came here, I met somebody who is awesome, and she said, you should come back with the Fulbright. You have to apply. It's very competitive, blah, blah, blah. And I applied, and I was very fortunate and lucky to have gotten the Fulbright scholarship. And I came the following year, 2011, I came to do my master's degree in public administration with a focus on HR. Part of my eclectic background, there was a part of my journey where I knew that I wanted to work for people and with people. And in fact, I was doing also some nonprofit work. And I flirted a little bit with politics back in Venezuela. I said, this could be awesome, it's a way to serve people. But when I discovered how nasty people can be with each other, I said, forget it, man. This is not for me. I can be like that. I take things sometimes very personally, and you have to have a very thick skin to be in politics. But that was the gate for me to have gotten both the International Visitor Leadership Program scholarship and then the Fulbright scholarship, and to come here. And ever since, I've been in the US for now 12 years.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It sounds like the interest in politics and your pursuit of politics didn't go anywhere, but it did open the door to another opportunity, which was this international leadership program, which then turned into the Fulbright opportunity.
Yeah.
When you tell that story, you make it sound so easy, right? You're like, well, I did this, and I did this, and I did this. But did you think about it? Like for a lot of people, those are pretty significant changes. Right? Yeah. To go from a technology expert to sales, and from sales to consulting and more HR oriented, then to be looking at politics. I mean, you've covered 4 totally different career paths and four different interests. And I guess the question that's in my mind is, did you have any hesitation about that as you're kind of looking at pretty significant changes? Were you concerned that you're throwing away your past experience or your education or your the references and the people as you're venturing into these new areas, or was it just full steam ahead?
I mean, in hindsight, it may sound as if it was just like full steam ahead, right? Meaning, I didn't hesitate and I moved from one thing to the other. Every one of these sort of moments in my life required me to leave behind what I was doing before, and very often that meant quitting the jobs that I had at that time. So that was not easy for me because it was my friends, it was my career, it was the unknown. When I quit my job, one of my jobs as an electronic engineer back in 2006 or seven, to do consulting work. I didn't have anything lined up. I just said, I want to take this risk. And here I am, like, it's not always been easy. I've had difficulties in my life, financial and, emotional and, hesitations about, am I doing the right thing? But the overall has been positive. And again, in hindsight, knowing all those steps that I've gone through, I think I wouldn't change a thing. Maybe I would have found me a mentor that would have even, pushed me to make some of these decisions faster. Not the kind of one that would have told me, don't do that. But yeah, it hasn't been easy. But in hindsight, again, it's been very positive for me personally, and I have found a lot of energy and like it's my purpose of connecting with people and helping others. I think that's being realized in all those steps in different ways. As a salesperson, as a nonprofit person, in the world of politics that I was there for a year or a year and a half, and in what I'm doing now in Hacking HR.
Well, it reminds what you're talking about reminds me of the relatively famous quote from Steve Jobs saying, "You cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backwards." Right? Once you've arrived at this point, you can look back and see how each one of those steps helped you to get here.
Well, what's funny is, it's back in 2009 when I quit one of my jobs to come to the US with the International Visitor Leadership Program, because they would have never allowed me to take so much time off. It took me a while to make that decision to quit my job because I didn't have anything lined up, no money, no nothing, debt and whatnot. I came here, I got the Fulbright scholarship. 12 years later, I'm here. It's been a great journey. But when I look back, I said, if I hadn't quit my job back then in 2009, who knows where I would be now, right? But I can only see that today. I would not have been able to see that back then. Back then was a risk. Back then it was, I don't know what I'm going to be in 12 years from now, but I know that I want to change and I want to do something different.
Yeah. So, I mean, you talk about those moments that are risks, but you also talk about times where there was, emotional challenges or financial challenges and navigating those. What are some of the, how did you navigate those? What are some of the tools or the thinking or the approach that you took? Because you are, clearly you're someone who's got a tolerance for risk because you've done that in a number of times. But you must also have some skills to get through those times. So I'm curious if you have anything that's worked really well for you in those moments where you feel challenged to help you navigate that time.
Yeah, well, I think there may be a couple of things that have been perhaps helpful to me. One of them is I try to put in my mind, nobody put a gun on your head to make this determination. You decided on your own, suck it up. And you gotta continue moving forward. Nobody forced me to do any of these things. Today I could probably be in the same job that I had back then in 2004 or 5, and still, be working with the same maybe coworkers in the same place. I made that determination myself, so I gotta suck up, whatever comes my way. That doesn't mean that it's easy. It means that I just have to overcome these challenges, right? And then the second part of that is that, I think that life is not easy, but I think we always find a way to figure it out. I don't know, it's I've had this idea that in one way or another I'm gonna figure it out. I don't have all the answers from the beginning. When I quit my job, I didn't know how I was gonna make money. When I quit my job 3 years ago to be full time with Hacking HR, I didn't have any. I had my savings, which I invested all in Hacking HR, but there was nothing telling me you're gonna make money and you're gonna be okay. So I just know that it's been a 20-year career. I have accrued a lot of skills, and I'm gonna figure it out. That's what not always do I figure it out, but I try to positively think I'm gonna figure it out, and that gives me hope all the time. That while I work it out, things will be, will continue to move forward, and they won't be as difficult as I think they can be.
Mm-hmm. So Enrique, I'm curious about something, which is, you clearly have an ability to move forward and have a vision and go after it, right? You make the decision yourself, you hold yourself accountable for that decision, and you take the action, and you're willing to take some risk and move forward. I'm curious how much of that you bring into the hacking HR mentality, because if I think about my years in the corporate world, HR is a relatively conservative organization. It's not typically the organization, at least stereotypically, that is pushing the company forward, that's taking risks, that's encouraging a different mindset and thinking about work and creativity and all of that. And yet I hear in your personal story, you have a lot of that. And so I'm curious how you bring those ideas into the work of hacking HR, which is really, hacking HR is about how do you make it better? How do you get past some of those obstacles or some of that history that may be less productive and get to the really beneficial pieces of it. So I'm curious if you're bringing some of those ideas into your work in hacking HR.
Every day I bring the stamina, the determination, the discipline to realize the vision that we have with hacking HR. In fact, this morning I sent out an email talking about HR as a trailblazer. And I'm a runner. I am a long distance runner. And generally, when you go to a race, a few days before, there are trailblazers, people that are marking the trail so that the runners don't get lost and that the runners can focus on their race, following the blazes, stickers and different things that the trailblazers put along the way, so that you focus on your race, and that's their job. That's how I see the job of HR, meaning a trailblazer that is marking the way for people, leaders, organizations into the future of work. This is not the way that HR was originally designed, let alone the way that most groups trying to move HR forward think about HR. And to me, what I'm trying to do with hacking HR is sort of break two big barriers. Barrier number one, the very barrier that everybody puts on themselves, thinking my job as an HR professional is just run this administration, pay people, hire them, fire them, and that's pretty much it. So barrier number one is, helping them believe that we are so much more than that, and that we can be so much more than that. That's very hard to do because it's a changing mindset, and it takes a lot of energy. The second part of it is that when you look at the offering of most organizations to the HR, to HR professionals and in the HR space, you find the same BS all the time. The same, meaningless crap all the time. Focus on the, there's this organization that I'm not going to mention, but whenever they send an email, they say, HR, get ready for the future with compliance. And I'm like, you're gonna be freaking kidding me. In what year do you think you're living, man? Come on. So what I think about this is that's not the HR that I want to see. So I gotta change two things, or I have to work in changing two things. Number one, each person or practitioner believe that we are much more than just that transaction. And number two, providing the offering to them to say the transaction is a little part of what we do. The other part of that is so much bigger, so much nicer, so much better, so much more valuable. It's just that we don't have the tools yet. And that's what I'm trying to add to HR. To do all of that, man, you need a lot of discipline and determination, because it's not always easy. Every now and then I get an email from somebody saying, I joined your event only for the credits of the certification credits from these associations. That it makes me feel like I want to just throw my computer to, and send everything to hell. But I say, you know what? No, we got to keep pushing forward, because we have to change these people. We have to tell them that doesn't mean anything. If you have those credits and you don't add value.
Yeah. So I hear a lot of parallel between your own story and your own values and what you're bringing to the HR community, right? A sense of breaking through barriers of what's possible and how you see yourself, right? You've changed the way you see yourself multiple times in your career. you've evolved, and now you're bringing that same thinking and that same mentality as one of these two main focuses of hacking HR to help people break out of the way they've seen themselves, very transaction oriented, compliance oriented, and so on, to see yourself as, no, you're the trailblazer. And then in a similar way to create new offerings. And I'm curious, if you think back in your experience, was there a moment or a period in your life where this opportunity, where these ideas came together in a way that you said, this is where I'm going and this is what I'm going to do? Because you've also been an HR professional yourself. So I'm like, somewhere along that way, this idea came to you. And I'm curious, what was that environment where, how did these ideas come together to bring you to this place?
It's been the sort of the convergence of many things that some of them happen somewhat at the same time, and some others have been, accumulating over time. The first one is that as I was doing my job as a corporate HR person, I found myself doing the work, but utilizing 10% of my capacities. And then I was thinking, like, I don't want to waste my life not doing anything with the other 90%. But I can do it in here, because the few times that I try to do something in this organization, they shut me down. They said, you can't do that. That's not your job, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, you know what? I want to do something, and it's going to have to be outside of this organization. So I said, I'm bored. I love technology. I love HR. Maybe what I do outside of the organization to add value to others and add value to me is creating conversations around technology and HR. And that's how Hacking HR was born, out of that conversation. But part of the evolution has been, I combine these two things. I see now I have a very clear and deep understanding of the world of HR today. Back then, maybe didn't have it that much, but sort of thinking and reflecting about my own experience, what I think about is, if I am super outspoken, I don't take a shit from anybody. And back then in my job, I was thinking, if the people that are leading HR in this organization treat me this way, how much worse would they treat somebody who is less outspoken, maybe more introverted, or some other maybe characteristics that would prevent them from speaking up. And then I imagine this must be happening in other organizations as well. And I started doing research, and I found out it's happening. There's lack of diverse thinking. There's lack of opportunities for growth. Culture in most organizations kind of suck. And what I was thinking is, you know what? It's not just about technology and HR, what HR needs. HR needs much more than that. And that's how Hacking HR was born that way, but it's evolved from just technology and HR to a conversation like the key-shaped kind of concept, where we talk about the HR dimension, the business dimension, and the leadership dimensions, and many others. So that's a little bit of the connectivity between all these dots.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And one of the things that I take away from that is that when you have found yourself in a place where you're not fully satisfied with what's going on, whether that's as an electronic engineer or wherever you've been in your journey, even in this last experience, only using 10% of your capacity in your role as an HR leader and wanting to be more engaged, you've taken action on that. And it's through that action that you've taken, whether it's moving from an engineer towards sales, moving, as in this case, starting Hacking HR. I think there's so many, it's so cool to hear you taking action on those things rather than just tolerating it. And I think that is, it seems like that's a big part of your journey. Hey, we have a comment here. Someone, Brian, says he's interested to hear your take on the need for HR analytics and how to best include other cross-functional business partners on the growth journey. So I'd love to hear, maybe you can share some comments on that, on that question.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually going to expand. I'm going to say something about that, but if you allow me 1 second to just expand from that question. Analytics was not born in HR, neither design thinking nor agility, experience. None of those things were born in HR. So a couple of things that I want to say here. Number one, for Brian and for everybody else who's listening to this conversation, in 5 years from now, in 10 years from now, in 15 years from now, if you work in HR and somebody comes to you, if you worked in HR in your career and somebody comes to you in that future and asks you, what did you leave behind? What's your legacy? What are you going to say? If you ask software programmers today what their legacy is, they can say a billion things. One of them is they created agility. They created the agile approach. If you ask marketing and sales people, they would tell you we created the experience, customer experience. If you ask designers, they would tell you we created design thinking. We haven't created anything yet that is that significant. So one thing that I think about all the time is, in 5 years from now, when people ask me, what's your legacy? I want to say A, B, or C. And that's what I left in the organization. The reason why I bring this up is because analytics is one of those areas that came to HR from outside of HR and has become really critical. So to me, the bigger picture here is that for us to be able to do great HR work, we have to do and learn and embrace a lot of stuff that are outside of HR. One of them, again, analytics outside of HR. Now we're using it in HR. I think that for any HR function to be truly effective, they have to leverage on data. They have to build what is called a data-informed HR strategy. Not data-driven. That's a different thing. A data-informed HR strategy. A strategy that you build by connecting the dots between business needs, business analytics, your people and how your people help your business succeed, and then the data that allows you to say the best way to do that is this and this and that, because we have the science that is telling us that that's the best way to do it. So analytics is a powerful tool for HR. That was a very long answer, by the way, beyond the question of analytics.
No, I love the part about your legacy. And I think as an HR executive, as a business person, just as a person, period, you want to be asking yourself that question, right?
Yeah.
At some point for all of us, our journey here on this planet is going to come to an end. And we want to ask, what was it for? What did I leave behind? What are those people who are behind going to think about when they think about me? And that's part of our business legacy. And that's a part, because that's a huge part of our lives, but it's bigger than just that. It's really our whole life experience. So I think
it's a powerful question, one that makes me think all the time. I think I've already somewhat paid my dues with Hacking HR, right? And I'm hoping that in 10 years from now, we still are around and people say, well, these guys from Hacking HR, look what they built and look how much better they made HR with Hacking HR. But this question is relevant for everybody. What do you want to leave behind? And that's why I think that today, this ill-called Great Resignation thing, partially when you dig deeper into why people are quitting their jobs, it's just because they don't find an outlet for their purpose and their passions in that work. If you are a great workplace, one of the greatest questions that you're going to ask yourself is, what do these people want to leave behind as a legacy when they are not around anymore? Can we help them realize that legacy through the work that they do with us? And then you're going to be connecting their purpose with your mission as a business, and it would be more beautiful for them and for you. But people have not found that at work, and that's why they quit their jobs.
Yeah, that is a powerful question. How do you align the employees' passions and interests with the companies and give them the opportunity to create that legacy? Such a good point. Enrique, thank you. This is an awesome conversation. We could go on and on, but just in the interest of keeping this short and sweet, we're going to wrap up. But I want to just give people an opportunity to connect with you. So if they want to reach out to you, they like what they're hearing, and they want to learn more, get involved in Hacking HR, what's the best way to do that?
They can reach out to me via LinkedIn, Enrique Rubio, or my email, enrique@hackinghr.io. I try to respond very quickly all the time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Enrique. This was great. Thanks for joining us here today.
Thank you.